The stage is Vasilis Dalitsikas.
Hi guys, I won't be as enthusiastic as Verona.
That's not possible.
Yeah, but I will be talking today about expectations versus reality and how Verona here just raised the expectations to the roof. So, players usually read the reviews, they come having seen the awards and expect Hollywood level sets and actors and mind-blowing puzzles and perhaps even dragons. Instead, they find usually a broken prop or a game master. My game master's name is George, and I usually dress him as an old lady against his will. And even perhaps a padlock that refuses to open. That's the player's expectation versus reality. But then there's ours, the creators. And that's the side of the story that I really want to talk about today. So, the creator's reality. While players dream of cinematic experiences and adventures, we usually hope and dream of a game session that runs smoothly without anything breaking. We dream of one day fixing something once and it actually staying fixed. We dream of one day paying ourselves and my game master George enough that one day he will be able to afford therapy. But, this is a very interesting question. The truth is that there is the moment where reality and expectations truly collide. The dream. We all, as creators, begin with a dream. You know, the perfect scene, the sound, the lights, the smells. We imagine everything perfect in our head until we open Excel. That's when reality becomes an endless spreadsheet of costs, of safety rules, of my accountant saying, no, Vasilis, you can't file your flat budget under office supplies. That's the moment where every creator eventually gets there. You know, the one where you look at your project and say, like Verona before, if I keep going, I'll never get this money back. We've all been there. And you know that it's the moment where you have to decide if you will be chasing perfection or the truth. And the real question is not how perfect can you make it, it's what do you truly want people to feel, right? Every country, every city, every player defines value for money quite differently. In some places, 50 euros is reasonable, as I'm sure a lot of you are thinking now. But in other places, it's like a personal insult to their ancestors. You know, in Greece specifically, where me and Verona are from, people expect to get their money's worth. And by that, I mean Hollywood sets, actors, explosions, storytelling, emotional damage, drama, therapy, redemption, possibly an exorcism, and ideally closure with their unresolved childhood issues, now conveniently voiced by an actor in a mask, while he is chasing you around with a chainsaw. Yes, all in 2 hours and under 30 euros. In Greece, puzzles are optional, but emotional damage must be cinematic. It's cultural, I know, and slightly therapy worthy, but that means that every creator in Greece, has to be constantly balancing between art and survival, because he's trying to create something that feels priceless without going bankrupt in the process, right? The weight of expectation, because when you do manage eventually to build something that is special to you and to your audience, and something that connects with people, people start expecting you to do it again, but bigger, but more cinematic, more emotional, and yes, scarier if you're in Greece. And then you end up chasing your own shadow, right? And that shadow often, most times in my experience, feels heavier than the dream you initially had. So, let's talk about Lockhill. When I started building Lockhill, almost 12 years ago, the idea was simple. A story told through multiple rooms. A village that existed only through walls and whispers. Back then, the idea was new. That kind of game didn't exist. You would normally go to an escape room, play, escape, or fail to and get stopped halfway through, and left. But I thought, what if you didn't actually have to leave? What if every game was part of a larger mystery, and the player was living inside the story instead of just living? The first thematic reception I built was nothing exceptional. It was a small Victorian alley with a 3x3 store that acted as a reception. But the thing is that you didn't walk into a game. You walked into a village, into Lockhill, that shouldn't exist in an office building on the 3rd floor, but somehow it did. And back then, that level of immersion was maybe a bit too real, because I still remember a group of foreign players coming along with some Greek friends they had just met. So they arrive. I opened the door, as I was also the actor in the room. Full costume on, lantern in hand. Behind me, a dark medieval alley with a fake thunderstorm raging, and they stand in front of me. The look on their faces said it all. It was like, fuck, this is not an escape room. This is where we'll have our kidneys taken. And, in fact, they didn't play. They just turned around, walked back to their taxi, and vanished into the night. That was one of the first Lockhill experiences, panic before the intro. From there, the idea spread. Now thematic lobbies are everywhere. The story is intertwining, and the narrative is a living narrative, actually. The problem is that once something becomes a trend, it loses its magic. It becomes an expectation, which we'll be talking about more today. Back many years back, having an actor in a room actually was considered revolutionary. Today in Greece, it's all practically mandatory. About 11 years ago, I'll go to that later as I just pressed a mistake in my pocket. 11 years ago, there were perhaps 4 max companies in Greece that we dared to introduce actors in our rooms. It completely changed the experience. But it also doubled our costs overnight. Because the problem was that having an actor in a room meant that you would have to take a risk that perhaps would, ruin your business. But it worked. because players experience something they had never seen before. I chose specifically here to incorporate that cost, because I had people telling me that no one would come to play with them because of the prices. I ended up incorporating the cost and losing profit, because I wanted people to experience what I had created, even if that meant I wouldn't be making that much money. Now, today in Greece, if a room doesn't have an actor, players ask, they go like, wait, no actor? So what, we're just like solving puzzles and shit? That's how quickly expectations evolve. What was once something that made you unique suddenly becomes the new definition of normal. Flattering, but also extremely tiresome creatively, right? We often forget why we started. It's not just to make profit, it is, but not the main thing, at least for me and Verona. It's not just to impress, but it's also to feel something as you're creating it and make other people feel something too. Sanatorium specifically. When I built that, it was back then, it was considered a very large game. It was about mystery and story and emotions. The room still stands today, 8 years later. Is it 8 years? Yeah, it is. 8 years later. And it's still being voted among the best escape rooms in the world. Not because it's perfect. It isn't.
Yes,
but because it is. I know it isn't. It's okay. But because it still connects with people, with many people on a deep level. It taught me something very important. That it's not about perfection. What you create doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be authentic. It needs to create strong emotions and connect with people, even if you don't impress everyone. Over time, I saw how a simple idea, can start off as an experiment, become a trend, and then reshape how future players experience it. Specifically, Sanatorium, when it first opened, nobody had seen anything like it. It was very, very scary. It felt unsettling, mysterious. It hit very hard. The room still stands today, 8 years later, almost identical to its original form, but it doesn't feel the same anymore. Not because the room changed. The room is the same, but because the audience did. The myth, the collective myth that grew around the room, the stories, the reviews, that you have to experience it before you die, reshaped how players actually experienced the room. Yes. Then came chapel mechanics. If Sanatorium was quiet tension, chapel was 2.5 hours of scale, of story, of immersion, similar things. 1 year later, it was voted as the best escape room in the world. Not because it was perfect, but because it felt alive. Because again, it connected with people. Although everyone didn't need to, but it connected with enough people that, through a contrast in its game design, that made it enough. That was all that was necessary. That contrast was that it felt like two different games. That shift of rhythm is what made it feel alive. Not perfection. It didn't need to be flawless. I knew it wasn't. I didn't build it as wanting it to be perfect. It felt alive because it had a pulse and offered something new. I want to stress this again, because I mentioned it before, but I feel it's important. The collective myth that grows around an experience is not shaped. Expectations, basically, are not only created by us, the creators, they are also created by the myth that grows around the room, the collective myth. Because players don't just play a room. They play the stories, the hype, the rumors, the reviews, the awards, their friends who hit the panic button because the room was extremely scary. That myth can either elevate an experience or quietly crush it. Because when players expect revelation, even a masterpiece can disappoint. Not because it's bad, but because their imagined version was already flawless, according to their own personal likes and dislikes. The myth becomes the experience. And that myth means, usually, it's my personal opinion, that if you play something and you really, really liked it, it's rarely a good idea to replay it. Because the second time you play, you don't play the room. You're playing your memory of the room. You're trying to recreate a feeling, you're chasing a feeling that can't exist twice. Like, it can't be like the first time you experienced it. It's like you are rewatching an old childhood's favorite movie, your favorite movie, from when you were 12, and you're trying to feel that again, but you can't, because you are no longer 12. That is not failure. It's just the nature of experiences. You know, they live, they peak at some point, and then they turn to stories that we share with our friends. So, what do? Knowing we can't control how others experience our work, we can't stop players from moving on or stop the industry from evolving. The truth is that every great room will eventually be topped by another. As soon as something is labeled the best, the countdown has already started before someone else builds something better, bigger, more impressive and scarier, right?
I don't think so.
I do, it's my personal experience. So how do we deal with that? What can you do? First, by accepting it. You can't control how long your work stays at the top. You can only control how honest it is while it's there. And by that I mean how much of yourself you've poured in it, and your love, and your enthusiasm. Second, by not mistaking success for security. A full calendar, great reviews, awards, they all fade over time. But your skill, the skills you've gained, your experience, and the stories that you've crafted, all these things stay with you. Third, by not trying to outshine the things that you've already created, your own myth. We go back to creating because we have that creative itch we just have to scratch, you know. You don't have to impress every player. If even only one can forget where reality ends and the illusion begins, then you've made it. Fourth, by staying hungry. Every time someone builds something impressive, instead of panicking, instead of trying to find flaws in it, ask yourselves, what can I learn from this? The only true competitor is your previous self, nobody else. Fifth, by keep building, keep making stuff until you've created something that the next generation will look at and say, okay, challenge accepted. Perhaps I can do something better. And lastly, and most important, by stop chasing everyone's approval. In fact, trying to please everyone usually means you end up pleasing no one. I've seen it happen countless times over the years with many exceptional rooms all over the world. A room, an experience, connects deeply with a lot of people, and others might call it overrated. I'm sure you've all been there. But that word, overrated, it's strange if you think about it for a moment. What does it mean? It assumes that our own personal opinion somehow carries more weight than the collective experience of hundreds of other people. I'll say it again, slower this time. Think about it. Our own personal opinion carries more weight than the collective experience of hundreds of other people. Art doesn't work that way. Experience doesn't work that way, because something that moves one person might not move another. That's not a flaw. That's proof that what you made, that what you created, actually means something, because it touched people differently. If people ever call your work overrated, congratulations. You've made something that mattered, that truly mattered. So, expectations. Expectations are loud, right? They're online, they're public, they are ranked, reviewed, awarded. But reality is quiet. It's that one heartbeat when a player forgets the game. It's when you don't know where reality ends and illusion begins. Humility. So, expectations don't just stop with players. Over the years, I've met a lot of creators, and I've came to realize that expectations follow us too. We expect every new project to outshine the previous one. We expect perfection from ourselves, from our teams, from our ideas, and when we fall short, because eventually we do, it hurts, right? Humility is what helps us. It's not a weakness. It's not about pretending we are small and we don't know our worth. It's what protects us when things eventually break, right? When players don't get the masterpiece we think we've created, or when months and months and months of hard personal work collapse in 5 confused minutes and you don't know what the fuck happened, right? Humility keeps us humble enough to fix it and try and keep on going in spite of all the above. Humility also protects us from something else, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. You know, in this industry we all compete. Who built what? Who won which award? Who everyone's talking about this year? Who is the best? That comparison sometimes turns into poison, and suddenly you're not creating anymore. You're not inspired by others, you're just playing and judging. Playing and judging, playing and judging. Humility is an antidote to that, because it helps us remember that somebody else's success doesn't take away from ours, doesn't diminish us, it doesn't make us smaller. It expands what is possible, right? It forces us to aim higher, to dream bigger, trying to keep the magic alive, and perhaps even make a little profit while doing so in the process, right? So, they read the reviews, they saw the awards, they come expecting Hollywood. And instead, what did they get? A broken padlock, a sticky probe, and George, the old lady. But If somewhere between the broken props and the laughter, they forgot where reality ended and the illusion began, maybe reality was better than the expectation, after all. Thank you.
Here. You say you open the Sanatorium 2 with the house on the hill. Why you are not open the Sanatorium 2? I hear that somewhere in the YouTube.
Can you repeat, please?
You say, when I open the house on the hill,
Yes.
I say, and the Sanatorium 2. Is that true? You make the
Eventually,
Sanatorium 2?
Yeah, eventually, yes. I've started building, like, even my new room has taken like 4 years because I'm building it alone. So eventually, yeah, it will open, like in another 5 years.
That is my question.
Yeah, you were second.
Okay, thank you. My question is more practical.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering how you balance between being too much and being too little about when we talk about client's experience.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was thinking maybe if we include actors, role play, effects, and all of this in once, it's going to be too much. Is it the same in Greece or?
It started like that. You know, in Greece, escape rooms. In Athens, there's a lot of escape rooms. There's like 250 escape rooms, or even perhaps more. So people are truly passionate, like Verona there. Many Greek owners are like that because they don't exactly see it like a job. You know, they put their personal love in it, and they always try to make something a little better, a little more advanced than the things that they've played. Why they do that is interesting, but another subject. So the industry grew really fast, and you always had to do something more, something different, something that didn't exist before. So eventually, that became the new reality, and you can't go back now. If you don't have these things, then you will be left behind. Or perhaps knowing that you will be left behind, maybe you don't care, maybe it's not your main job or whatever. And consciously you choose not to, which is okay, as long as you're aware of what that means. In many countries, actors are not a thing, not yet at least. They're slowly getting there. Eventually though, everyone is going to have them. And if you don't, you will have to find another way to compete. If you want to stay relevant.
Thank you for your honest answer.
Yes?
Why do you create only horror?
I haven't actually. My two first rooms that do not have actor. Well, they're 11 years old now, which is like, 17, as I mentioned to one of my friends before, in human years. But they are puzzle, not very difficult ones, puzzle-based rooms without actors, with a lot of atmosphere and mystery, but simple rooms.
Yeah, Photoshop is kind of creepy and...
But not really scary, not actively scary. Yeah, you've been there?
Yeah, they do. You're a brilliant creator, that's what why I'm asking, why not create more non-horror, if you want to be unique. Like,
Because the Greek audience, remember what I said before? Wants to actively be scared. Unfortunately, we got there, it was not like that before. We still have great puzzle rooms, like Paradox Project, for example, but it's not the majority of games, unfortunately. I'm also a puzzle fan.
Did that change with Epic actually? I know you create games for Greek audience, but then you got into the international map, basically, with Sanatorium and later with Chapels. Thank you, by the way, for creating this. This was my first horror room, probably the last one. I sang...
Yeah, but you stayed. You didn't run back to your taxi.
I sang Baby Shark for 5 minutes in that room because I was scared. But anyway, did your perspective change when the international audience come now? Athens, I believe, if there is a good example of people coming to play escape rooms specifically on a place, this is Athens. So did that change somehow for you and you started thinking about making it broader, or you just keep audience from Greece in your mind when you create horror?
Do you want the honest answer?
Yes,
Or
yes please.
I don't care. I only create things that I like and I love, knowing, like I calculated Greece before, as I mentioned, that I could make it more scary, more bigger, with more actors, and I don't know, shooting things at you, whatever. But that's not the thing that I will make. I know that throughout the years, people, many people, not all of them, but many people love what I create because they can identify with what I love in making. So I know that I will have people enjoying my games because I enjoy them too. So I really try not to go into that mood where you are like, what must I create that will be the best and outshine everything and I don't know, be the scariest thing that you have ever. I consciously avoid that. It's not easy because you have to compete with yourself many times.
It keeps you humble, I get it.
You can't, otherwise you will go crazy.
So basically Terpeka didn't change that for you as a creator?
No, it was a wild recognition of my work, you know, it can't be, because when people start coming to play your games, not only your games, because Athens is a hotspot for great games. Even if you only love puzzles, you can actually find puzzle games that aren't Terpeka actually, that have won over many years high-ranking positions.
Games, of course.
Yeah. So you can find that if you want to, but it has a lot of amazing experiences that are horror-based, and that I personally believe that everyone who comes there will get new ideas about how things could be, and perhaps bring back home, because you know every country likes different stuff. But eventually, I find that human emotion likes fear. So perhaps you will have an insight into that a bit more.
Do you have a lighter version of House of the Hill, or it's still very scary?
All my games can be played and can be adjusted, because the important thing for me is not to actively scare you. I really want for you to come play my games. If I can adjust them, I will, to the point where they are playable. But I just want you to appreciate what's been created, and if I can adjust it to your own level of horror, that's okay. If not, it's okay too. You don't have to like it.
Sorry. Thank you.
Other questions? No? Okay. Perfect.
Okay, so now to the audience.
So, I think that you were three of you, but two of you actually asked interesting things. So, this is one for you.
Of course.
And
It's scary.
Okay, just